All right, there
Hey
we
y'all.
go. Okay. Welcome to the live the Abundance Summit Zwift race. Yeah. This is the first time that we're doing this, so as always, I ask for patience while we figure out how this even works. But I think it'll be a cool opportunity to show the Zwift platform and also kind of talk a little bit about bike racing, even though the bike racing that I do and that Shay does or Shakoya does is very different than this. Um, I think it's just a cool opportunity that I decided we're going to take, and we're just going to see what happens. How you
Yes,
feeling today, Shay? We had a long yesterday.
we did. And we're gonna drop a little note. Today is Aisha's birthday, so happy birthday, Aisha. Working on her birthday is how hard. That's how she's going hard in the paint always.
Yeah, I
But
don't know that I'm proud of that.
yeah, no, yeah, it'd be like that when you work for yourself, right? You gotta put in those days, even on your birthday. But to the race, looks like we started out with about roughly 10 riders. They are doing the Wandering Flats course, and the total elevation for this course is 500 meters. Um, I don't know what that converts to for feet.
Let's see. I'm pretty good at this. So usually it's around you multiply it around 3 by 3 and you get approximately it. So we're going to say around 1500 feet. A rough
Mm,
estimate. Cuz remember in like grade school we had the yardstick, and the yard is 3 feet and is kind of close to the same size as a meter, but it's not exactly a meter. That's why it's an estimate. So 1500.
like we wouldn't be having this problem if we all were on the same measuring system.
You know, America, we decided we wanted to do the imperial way, which doesn't that sound like British to you? Doesn't that sound a little backwards? But I guess we were originally a British colony. Maybe everybody else was like, we're not doing that no more, and we decided we wanted to stay different. So here we are.
Facts. Um, yeah. But more to the course, right? So how many laps roughly will the riders do of this, you think?
How long did you say the course was?
It is a 50-kilometer road race.
But the Wandering Flats, do we know exactly the stats on the? We can
Course.
figure that out pretty quickly.
Yeah, probably look. We can look that up for the
I
high.
had it, but I don't have it anymore. But while you're looking that up, so basically, what we're looking at here is the front of the race. And if you look to the right, you can see all of these names with numbers. And so the power that people are outputting is their watts per kilo. So you see that W/kg. And so these folks are averaging between like 2.5 to 3.5 watts per kilo right now, which isn't super hard in the paint, but also they're not chilling, right? So that's about an average race pace. And if they approach a sprint or a point where they need to ramp it up or they're trying to lose folks, like you see the sprint stats, so they would up that to try and go faster. So their watts per kilo would raise significantly while they're sprinting. And so they brought it down a bit because that part is over. The other stats you're seeing, the numbers and the times, that shows you where you are or where each individual person is in relation to the next person. So you see where they are on the course. So A. McKinnon here is at, wait, where am I? At 2 miles. And behind them or right next to them is Arsenos, and 1 second behind them is E. Arianas. And if you see E. Arianas is going a little bit harder to try and catch up. So that's what these numbers are.
And they have a good tight group. If they stay together, the folks will be able to rotate and not do as much work. So basically, they're drafting off each other. So even in the Zwift world, there are still benefits to be gained from drafting and staying within a group. You will still do less work if you stay within a group, stay clumped up, as opposed to doing work out front by yourself.
For sure. So if we kind of scoot back a little bit, if you're by yourself, it's a little bit harder because you're not in the draft anymore. So this person's going to have to put out more watts per kilo to even have a chance to catch up, versus if you're in the clump toward the front. Oh, this person has gone off the front. We're going to go back to, oh, we are broken up. Look at that. We're going to go back to our cluster. But if you are in this group here, if you draft off of the person in front of you, it's going to be much easier than if you're out by yourself. So this race is already very much broken up. And I'm thinking that this group is going to stay together most of the time, but anything is possible. If somebody decides they want to really push it, like Goodwill Hunting at the top of the screen here, gone on a breakaway. If you see the names at the bottom of the screen, they are slightly behind. There we go. You can see them kind of in the background there. This person is trying to leave them in their dust. Essentially, that's what's happening.
Exactly. But if that group works together, they could slowly bring back Goodwill Hunting, because Goodwill Hunting has to do a lot more work alone than the group does. So
Exactly.
if they're smart, they'll work together to bring that back, because there's still plenty of time left in the race.
So in a non-Zwift race, usually things will start out pretty spicy and eventually mellow a bit. And the reason that happens is usually the group wants to literally shake off dead weight. So they want to get rid of the less experienced riders, the not so strong riders that might make the race a little bit more dangerous, a little less safe, because we are going real fast in a very tight group, and you want the best folks around you. So they'll go real hard in the paint for maybe the first, let's say 10 to 20 minutes, especially in a crit. And then it'll mellow out a little bit because we're all humans and most people have to slow down at some point. But on Zwift, somehow it doesn't feel like it shakes out that way. If you have the A-level Zwift races, they will go hard the entire time. And I personally enjoy a good coast here and there. They don't do that.
Yeah, something dynamic about the Zwift race is that folks who may not Zwift very often or who have never done it before, is that when you come to these Zwift races, you need to warm up just like you would if you're going to do a race outside of Zwift. It is key to make sure you warm up, because just like Aisha said, a lot of these races, there's almost no off. It is completely on, especially if the course distance for a Zwift race, or if it's based on time, if it's under an hour, a lot of times those races are almost completely full gas and you have to be ready for the burn. So if you come into the Zwift race and you're not able to punch it as soon as the time drops and release of the horses, then you will be left in the dust, and just kind of watching things happen in front of you.
For sure. And I feel like so the first race I did was Red Hood Crit. And, you think about bike racing, you think about people going fast, you have a general idea of how it's going to work. But the thing I didn't realize was that they were going to start so fast. And literally before I knew before I'd even clipped in, they had already turned the first corner. And I was very confused, but it's one of those things where once you see it happen, you figure it out, and it didn't happen to me again. But yeah, you got to be ready you really have to be ready at the start line. So when you see folks at the line and they're looking like super focused, they're just trying to make sure that they're ready to clip in, that they're ready to go, so they don't miss that wheel, because that front group, you want to stay with the front group for as long as you can, preferably the whole race, but at least as long as you can.
Yeah, a lot of times, I guess, and this and I know this because we've been racing a little bit, but it's initially when you're racing outdoors about the initial amount of being able to hang in, that attrition that happens in that very first maybe 15, 20 minutes of a race is like the most critical points, because when you are racing out in the real world, quote unquote, then you will have the ability to get a moment's breath after that initial bit of pace has been infused and kind of calms down. However, it's also good to know the course, because if it's a really decisive course in terms of turns and like certain corners, or if there's certain hills, then you it's good for a rider to know when those are coming up, because typically moves will happen right before or just after those key course points, which is why it's really good to do your homework on what the course profile looks like ahead of time.
For real. And then on Zwift, it's really easy to figure out how the course is going to be. So you don't have to worry so much about the turning because the avatar does all the turning for you. But you can have a heads up on the points where people are probably going to surge, usually at a sprint or like a climb or a king of KOM or QOM, which would be a king of the mountain or a queen of the mountain. And you can find all of the Zwift course information on zwiftinsider.com, which is a super helpful resource for Zwift in general, but it also can help you if you decide you're going to do a Zwift race and you want to, or even just a group ride and you want to know what you're getting into. You can check Zwift Rider or zwiftinsider.com and get information on the course, information on the elevation, the length, all of that. It's really helpful.
Yeah, it's good to really know that aspect because you can measure your efforts. The good thing about Zwift, you don't have to worry about turning your bike or bumping shoulders with folks. So it is a lot safer in that regard. But if you don't do your homework and at least look at the course and know what's going on and what's ahead of you, then you'll definitely be out of the loop in key aspects of the race and know when to put efforts in.
So if we look back at this race, Goodwill Hunting is very much ahead. He is, or they are, 18 seconds ahead in front of the next person.
Oh, wow.
So they have really put in a huge effort to get ahead. If you look at the power numbers, even they're averaging 4.5. Look at that 5.2, like really giving it a good push versus the person behind them they've pretty much let Goodwill Hunting go. Goodwill Hunting is out of here. So it's a very good chance that they will win this race unless something goes down. It's not impossible for them to catch if they work together. And that's another thing that's a huge dynamic in racing. If you look at the group, we saw that A. McKinnon previously had gone off of the front of this group to try and catch Goodwill Hunting on their own. But now, if you look, they're all working together as a pack, and you're going to move faster as a pack than you will as an individual because of the drafting, as we said earlier. So if they manage to stick close and work together, they can possibly catch Goodwill Hunting. But right now, it's not looking good for them because that gap has gone up to 20 seconds in the time that I've been talking to you about this.
And it looks like Goodwill Hunting definitely knows what they're doing. I'm also checking out Zwift Power, which is a website where folks who actually do races will have rankings. And when you sign up for a race, you can actually do a little bit of digging on people and find out what their rider rank is, their profile, and how often they race. And it gives you a really accurate reading on each rider who's in the race. And Goodwill Hunting is actually an A rider. They have a very high ranking. So they know what they're doing. This person is actually in the 50 plus age range. And yeah, they are a boss out here killing it. And the person who is, I guess, just behind is who's behind them.
Before it was A. McKinnon, but now we've got M. Vranick, who while you were talking made an attempt to chase on their own and again foiled. So yeah, folks are trying, but it's not working out for them.
It's good to keep trying though, because you never know what sticks. And A. McKinnon actually is a unranked rider, so it looks like they are definitely new to the racing on Zwift, but that doesn't mean that they don't have the power, that means they're just a dark horse. And so they're just untapped as to what they can do in terms of their power levels.
All right. Um, so Shaquaya, what did you think of yesterday's summit? I mean, you were just as much a participant as you were a co-host. So how was that for you?
I really, really enjoyed the keynote by J. Marie Hill. It was nice to be able to like take that in and watch. And definitely, I really liked the energy that they were putting out into the world. I really felt like even though I was watching it virtually, I was able to really take a moment and receive that. And I was really getting the energy from them just presenting. And I feel like their voice was really peaceful and it just kind of exuded through the lens. And I really appreciate that. And the business panel was super dope. I really thought that that was very informative, and it definitely shows that each one teach one. We have to definitely lift each other up as we learn more and grow within the business world, because there's so much being Black entrepreneurs out in the world that folks have to overcome because they haven't had the his, historical backing of support due to racism and things like that. So it definitely shows that, as we begin to learn and grow and evolve in the business world, that giving back and reaching back and sharing knowledge, mentorship is key to as we all continue to try to succeed and lift each other up. There's a space for everyone. I also thought that the Zwift tutorial was super helpful. And Zwift is, because it's an app and it's online, it's consistently growing and evolving. And there's always like something new to pick up and learn. So I think that that was like super helpful as well. What did
You
you?
actually led a Black Celebration series ride this year for the Black Foxes on Zwift, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I did. That was pretty fun. Talking to people. It's actually very hard to ride with some sort of effort and also try to chat in this with companion, because you're like breathing hard and telling people to chill on the pace while also trying to type.
It's an art for sure. I know some folks use what's the voice streaming.
Oh,
Why
Discord.
can't I think of it? Discord. Yeah, some people use Discord, so you have your little headset, and people can get on Discord while they're on Zwift, and then you can talk. And um, I do both at the same time while also Zwifting and leading. But I'd be always doing the most, like always doing the. I need to do less. You know what? Today is my 35th birthday, and my motto for this year is do less. We gonna start that tomorrow, though.
Mm-mm-mm. Way to bring in 35, a celebration of Black joy.
Yeah, no, I think I'm really looking forward to today. We have a pretty incredible lineup ahead of us after the Zwift race. We're gonna um, get some chef lessons from Latoya Shante Snell. She's gonna teach us how to make an accessible meal, which I'm really looking forward to because I don't like making bougie meals. Like when I try and if I don't know how to cook something, I literally Google simple ... like simple mac and cheese recipe. I don't actually know how to make mac and cheese without the recipe, but that's what I do. Like simple banana bread. I've been using that simple banana bread recipe for like 10 years because it's got 3 ingredients. If it has more than 4 ingredients, I don't want it. Unless it's like
Mm.
seasonings. If it's got more than 4 seasonings, okay, we can make that work. But like if I don't have it in my pantry, it's probably not going to work. And then I end up having to Google substitute for.
That's smart. You're using your resources. But I'm gonna
I
be too swole for the chef thing because I did not go grocery shopping. My fridge looks real desperate, and I'm gonna be hungry watching this demonstration. So I'm gonna have to like just keep drinking water.
mm, that's a little. I mean, can you like? Can you like Instacart or get some get some groceries before the presentation so you can chef it up with Latoya Shante, or what, like what's the
Yeah.
possibility there?
No, I hate
It's not
delivery
looking good.
fees. No, it's not looking good. It's gonna be just gonna be oodles and noodles and
Not
some pack of tuna with a boiled
not
egg.
oodles and noodles.
Or wait, the ramen noodles. Is that the what's that appropriate? The
I mean, they are different. Oodles and noodles and ramen noodles are different things. There's also a cup of noodles. So
I
don't
just call all
don't
noodles.
conflate all the noodles. They're all very affordable though. I would put those under the margin of accessible meals.
I
Some
call
folks
all
would call that a
noodles.
struggle meal, but look, on a hard day when you're feeling extra lazy, I will take a pack of ramen, boil an egg, get a hard boiled egg in there. You got your carbs, you got your protein. I'll throw some arugula in there. Don't don't mess with
Look,
me.
I
I
got
will
next
get it
level.
done. Okay.
I got the next level oodles and noodles. What same thing? Pack of noodles, the egg, add some minced garlic, onions, and also use whatever green you got, either kale, spinach, or like arugula. Jazz it up, and sometimes I add some tuna for protein, or if you have chicken, or if you don't eat meat, then you can. Was it
Get some
seitan?
tofu in there, some
Yeah,
seitan.
there you go. Bam.
Mm-hmm.
Affordable meal.
Our fellow Black Fox, Marty, loves throwing mushrooms and stuff.
Oh yeah, good look, mushroom.
Also, beans is meat. I mean, I don't know that I would put beans in ramen. Maybe. I feel like
That's risky.
maybe depends on the kind of beans, right?
Yes.
We'd have to consult the experts. Maybe that can be a question for Latoya Shante. Should we put beans in ramen?
Yeah, that sounds tough.
Yeah, nah, I'm not. I mean, that don't sound like something I would particularly care to eat, but I bet you somebody has done it
Yeah, desperation meal.
for sure. We also have an emotional intelligence workshop with Jalen. Jalen, say his last name for me because I've messed that up so many times.
Brazil.
Bazil. There we go. Jalen Bazil, like Brazil, but no R and another E at the end. There you
Bam.
go. Got it. You got to say people's names right. It's very important.
This is coming from Sequoia.
And Aisha.
And Aisha.
Also, tell me how my name is not that challenging, but somehow people cannot get it. It's phonetic, y'all. Like, why is this hard?
It's people be I don't even know.
I've been called Ashley. I've been called Aaron. One lady just screamed in my face. I don't know what is going on.
My favorite is when they add letters that aren't there. I'd be like, Sam, where did you see a L? Where, can you tell me? I'm
I
missing it.
don't know. Well, I am looking at our race here and it is completely broken up. There are only 3 folks left in that original group that we had before this pack, and it even looks like they're kind of splitting up a little bit. But
Yep.
Goodwill Hunting is just gone. 41 seconds in front of M. Vranick, who's also gone from that group. M. Vranick has, let's see, 47 seconds on the next person. And yeah, this race is just completely blown apart. Just completely blown apart. So basically, we have a bunch of people doing a time trial at this point. Jaquay, you want to tell the folks what a time trial is?
Well, it's basically you against the clock. And so you're racing, you're trying to do the best effort on a specific.
Oh, wait. You see this? You see this? P. Apathy said waiting. All right. So they've decided they're going to work together. They're also using the Zwift companion app to communicate. I am into this. I don't think I've ever seen that in a race. I mean, I don't do a whole lot of Zwift racing, but I don't think when I'm Zwift racing, I cannot companion app. Like, I know I was like, oh, I Zwift race, or I'd lead a Zwift ride and I'd do the companion app and I'd be doing the Discord. But if I'm racing, tell me how. I did during the pandemic. I was like, man, I need to race my bike. I did one race series. I think it was the Joe Martin Virtual Zwift race. At the end of the final stage, I got off of my bike. My shoes were still attached to the bike. and remained there for a
Mm,
good 2 days. I was like, oh no, this
damn.
is this is not my thing. But there's some people who are really good at Zwift racing because they don't have to interact. They don't have to interface with riders being extra close to them. They don't have to interface with cars for the training. They don't have to interface with a lot of the like bad roads. The chance of injury is very much reduced. There's a lot of benefits to choosing Zwift as your main racing. And now the UCI has it's essentially sanctioned at this point because they have national championships, they have world championships. I don't know if they're going to have like a e-racing Olympics at some point, but that would not surprise me. So I think whereas when Zwift first started, people didn't really take e-racing very seriously, but now you can win a world championship jersey. Now they're on their second world champion,
Yeah,
for
that's
the
all.
men and for the women. It's legit. It's real, you know, like this is a serious thing. It's a sport that people can get into. It does have a high point of cost for entry, but I feel like unlike outdoors, once you have your setup, you have your setup, right?
Correct.
Like
I
I
feel like
feel
the
like
cost
it's
go up.
probably a lot easier to maintain it also because you can just actually really take care of your stuff and then you be good.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the cost definitely level out because I definitely considered going to a race in Arizona this year, and I looked at what it was going to cost just for me to go, and it was going to be at least $1,500, and that was for flight expenses, that was for rental car, and God forbid trying to drive because gas prices insane, and I'm trying to
Yeah.
yeah, so it could be worth it to get a solid Zwift setup with your bike and an ergonomic trainer or each, electronic trainer. That'll be it's actually feasible. And nowadays you can get stuff on kind of a payment plan. Not that
That
I'm
Afterpay?
yeah,
How
yeah.
did layaway make a comeback though? Remember when layaway
No,
was like people pretended they didn't do things? Look, do not be mad about lay. Just don't get caught up.
yeah. They will catch you slipping with the layaway, but if nothing wrong with it, it'll help you get the things that you need, so you can pay it off. I definitely it comes in clutch. I didn't use it a couple times, um, but yeah.
So I was thinking about when we were talking about layaway. I was thinking about when I got my first bike, like my first road bike, and I couldn't afford it. First of all, I always say there's a difference between can buy and can afford. So I went to the bike shop. I went to Ride Brooklyn. Shout out to Ride Brooklyn. And I was like, yo, I need a road bike because I'd been a fixie kid. I'd had a commuter bike. I'd done so many different kinds of riding, but I'd never really had like a racing road bike, like a car. I wanted a carbon road bike. And so like they were showing me the stuff on the main floor, and I was like, oh, I don't know, like, my wallet ain't matching up to, to these prices. And my friend was like, all right, we have this bike. It's in the basement. We had it a couple years. Because folks don't like old stuff, but I was like, I don't mind. Does it work? Does it start and drive?
Facts.
And it was my size. It was a beautiful bike. And I still couldn't afford it, but I put some money down. And then I decided I was going to figure out the rest.
That's
Um, and so at the time, I was a preschool music teacher. And this was just serendipity. But PNC Bank was filming a commercial. And they were using my place of work to film the commercial. They just needed a school for one of the scenes. And then they needed somebody to pretend to be a teacher. Mind you, I was a real teacher. And they were like, you want to pretend to be a teacher? They paid me enough to buy the rest of my bike, to smile, which I'm really good at, on camera for like half a second. I can find that commercial somewhere. All I did was smile. That's it.
look
They
at
put me in a
God.
little pink shirt and I smiled, and then I could buy my bike. And I was like, bet. Won't he do it?
Exactly. That's exactly how I got my first road bike. It was layaway. So shout out to the layaway because I wouldn't even been rolling without it.
I think, don't quote me on this, but I think that through Zwift.com, if you purchase a smart trainer or any of the stuff there, that you can, I feel like you can use Afterpay, but I don't know. We should look that up. I'm gonna let you look that up. But I feel like I maybe have seen that passively.
Yeah, I think they do have some special. They have some deals. It looks like right now they got a Wahoo kicker on sale. You can use a
Uh-oh.
firm, which is just like
Affirm. There you go. That's what it was. I knew I saw something. Okay.
yeah. And if you pay, I think if you pay it off within like 6 months, no interest. They are not paying us to say this, but we're all about sharing information so everybody can level up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Each one teach one.
exactly. So you can get your set up. I mean, you could be racing in a couple days on Zwift. And with that
Yeah.
monthly trial we got, you know what I'm saying, after you signed up for Quick Brown Fox to do the summit, you could be racing your heart out for a good month before you got to pay. Mm.
I mean, when you say it that way.
Fam.
No, yeah, there are ways. But I think the thing about it is that like from jump, people have to understand, like they have to want to do it, right? Like it's not realistic to expect somebody to immediately want to throw literally thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars at something they have no idea what it is or like even know if they'll enjoy it. And there's some folks that are in a position where they can and will do that. But I feel like sometimes the industry loses sight of the fact that this stuff is actually very expensive. And it's not so much that people won't buy it. It's just that they need to know that they want to buy it first, right? Like
Correct.
when I first got into riding, I never thought that I would be the type to spend over $1,000 on a bike. Like it was at the time the most expensive thing I ever bought for myself. And I think I was 26 at the time when I bought it, 26, 27, something like that. And just the idea of that was unfathomable, but I loved it so much and I was into it so much. I was like, this is a worthy investment. This is a worthy use of my money. And I feel like, Black people have a lot of spending power. And if you if you give them a reason to buy your stuff, they will go hard for it.
Exactly.
Right? They will go hard for it.
Exactly. I mean, if you folks sign up on Zwift, there's a couple groups that are leading bike races and bike activities, like the Major Taylor Club. I think they have a consistent ride weekly on Zwift, and they have different categories. So folks are looking to engage with other Black folks on Zwift. Their rides typically have a pretty good showing, and they also are pretty active in the chat feature as well. So, and then if a Quick Brown Fox has rides, in addition to, I'm sure there's other groups, which I don't know of, but there's definitely a diversity out there of folks to chat with. And Zwift is all over the world. So if you pull up at 9 o'clock at night, your time, it's early somewhere else for somebody, and you could just be riding. You're never alone, essentially. So there's always motivation for sure.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite part. And like, I'm particularly introverted and pretty antisocial. But the thing about Zwift is communicating with folks is a choice. Like, you don't have to talk to anybody, but you can have somebody to ride with. Like,
Exactly.
outside, that's kind of weird. And I've done it, and it's actually cool. And I've met a lot of people that way. But on Zwift, like, it is not unheard of that you just jump in a group ride of people you have no idea who they are. Like, I don't know if anybody in this particular race that we were watching, if they know each other at all, but that it doesn't matter, right? Like that's kind of the beauty of Zwift too, that you can sort of have that like social interaction without being too social. And especially during the pandemic, it was huge because we couldn't go outside for a really long time. And like even like I was in the States at the time, but in Europe, like they for real couldn't go outside. Like, America they were like,
Thank you.
Couple days, they was like, whatever, do what you want. Best of luck to you, don't die.
Yeah,
But in Europe, they actually had rules. And so it was, you know, people needed something to do. And so Zwift was, it was kind of popping before the pandemic, but during the pandemic, it was like for real, like it
yeah.
blew up.
It
I
turned into
don't
a
think,
lifeline.
yeah, I don't think anybody expected it. Like we needed it. We needed something, and it was a great way to like ride, to keep training, to maintain some sort of fitness, to have do some sort of physical activity like that wasn't walking, pacing around the walls of your apartment or your house. Like
Hmm.
I felt so bad for people who lived in tiny spaces, because that's fine, to live in a tiny space when you can get out and go do things, go enjoy outdoor space, hang out with friends, go dancing or whatever. But if you are stuck in a small space for months and you cannot go outside, like that'll do something to you. So it was really cool to have a physical outlet.
Yeah, definitely was a mental health relief just having somewhere to expend some energy and talk with people. And the chat feature is very much like the throwback days of chat rooms. People pull up and be like almost age/location, the ASL, but it's more where you located and then how long you've been riding, and you end up making friends online that maybe you never even meet. But people sometimes people talk about meeting in real life, going to different events, so that could be cool too.
I think one of the things I do enjoy about participating in Zwift events, whether it be Zwift racing or just a group ride, if you do get popped, you can find a little group or find some friends and just ride your ride at that point. Like
Exactly.
if you're in a outdoor race, a lot of the times if you miss the group, like if you miss the front group, it's a rolling what do they call a rolling caravan? So the roads become unsafe once you are behind the pack, behind the cars. But here you can keep riding, you can finish your race, you can finish the course, and it's fine. Nobody's gonna rush you, nobody's gonna push you out of the way, nobody's gonna tell you gotta stop. Like I've seen people do almost complete races, and then they'll be almost at the end and they'll be like, you missed it, you gotta stop now, you can't finish. And like you've
Mhm.
invested time.
That's disheartening.
It
Getting
is
pulled.
so disheartening. And it happens more on those like longer, like day long kind of events. But it's still, like you signed up to do this thing, and usually you paid money to do it, and then you
Yeah.
can't finish. So that's like another huge benefit of Zwift, where you sign up for an amount of time or you sign up for a length, and then you get to do the whole thing, and ain't nobody gonna bother you if for some reason you had a mechanical or you didn't make the front group or whatever. So
And
mechanicals do happen.
that's true with the dropouts, but but uh but I think what's super helpful too about Zwift is if you have this race and you don't make it and you get popped, you can still ride your ride, but you could sign up for another race. Like you could literally
Mm-hmm.
pull in Zwift Companion and be like, when's the next race? I
Mm-hmm.
really flubbed on the start of this one. Or maybe you don't finish the current race you signed up for, but you use it as a warm up for another race that's happening in 30 minutes. So you got another chance.
I've definitely done that. Like there'll be times where I have like my coach will give me a workout and I'll have to ride for a certain amount of hours. And riding by yourself on a trainer can be real dull, but sometimes I'll fill it with Zwift events. And so I'll like piece some together to fill the time. So maybe I'll ride by myself for half an hour and then catch an event that lasts for an hour and then catch another event that lasts for an hour. And if the event goes over time, I can dip when I'm done. Like I don't have to do the whole thing. So it's very like whatever you want to do. Like it's up to you. You can use Zwift in whatever way that makes the most sense for your lifestyle and what you're trying to accomplish.
And what Aisha mentioning actually is super dope because it serves several purposes. Like like she said, it kind of occupies time and space, but by signing up for a bunch of events, you multiply your drops, so you get more points You get more points the more events you do. You get more swag. Opens you up to more gear because when you sign up for more events and you complete them, you can get specific jerseys, and it just adds to your and it also can add to your Zwift power profile if you're someone who is into doing Zwift races online. So that can definitely increase your rank. And so there's like a couple serve several purposes. So definitely don't discount that for the folks in the back.
So it looks like we had maybe a question or two from some folks that are watching. Thank you for being here. That's pretty cool. What would you say is an ideal lead that is manageable to hold? Okay, so on Zwift, I actually cannot fully answer that question with confidence. My experience is mostly in real road racing. But usually when I'm watching like the pro races, the announcers have normally said that you want about 1 minute per 10 kilometers, right? So let's say there is 40K to go. If you've got over 4 minutes, you're probably solid. Now, the chances of people having over 4 minutes on the group is not always that's rare. That does not happen a lot. But if you have a strong breakaway group, it's not impossible. Usually
Mm-hmm.
you'll have the breakaways closer to the end. So if there's about 20K to go and you got a little bit over 2 minutes, then that's very, very manageable. But anything can happen. You can have a mechanical, you can have an accident, or you could just be tired and slow down a lot.
Yeah.
So the closer you are to the finish with the more time that you have, the better likely it is. But usually they say about a minute per 10 kilometers is a safe bet.
And it's
Not
also
a
a
not
mind
a sure bet, but a safe bet.
yeah, it's a mind game too. If you have a group, even if it's like three and there's one off the front, if that group is consistently putting in work and effort, then there's a good chance they could catch the person. But if some people, and I think it was with because I can see on the right hand side of the screen the time difference, sometimes that could be discouraging for folks. So if you're out in the front, it could be to your benefit just to keep going steady because maybe somebody back may not be believing in their legs and what they could do. And so they may end up giving up a bit. And so it could be a mind game. But if they would actually work together in a more consistent fashion with the people in their clump or cluster, then they can actually potentially catch those folks if they were to keep the power on. So like right now we're looking and it looks like Goodwill Hunting is at roughly 3 watts per kg. It's kind of floating, but it looks like the folks behind are doing slightly less power over time. But it doesn't necessarily mean they're going slower per se. It just means they're doing less work because they're maybe working in a group. But if they were doing a little bit more power and based on the speed profile, they could be actually closing that gap. But because the power profile and the speed is very similar, it means that they're probably not going to close that gap. They're just doing the same pace. So it's a good chance that Goodwill Hunting will stay off the front.
Oh yeah. No,
Yeah.
this is looking like a pretty solid lead. So you were talking about the whole concept of like out of sight, out of mind. And a really good example of that would have been the women's Olympic race this year. So
Mhm.
basically, the winner, a lot of folks didn't realize she was up the road because she was gone and they forgot she was there. So in professional racing or even like top level racing, usually you have a race radio. So I'm gonna go back even more. Road racing is a team sport. Even with Zwift racing now, you have teams, but road racing is a team sport. So usually you have about 4 to 6 people on a team at any given race. Usually that's how it works. And they all have radios. And the radios, you can talk to each other, your fellow teammates, or you can talk, you can talk to your director, kind of like the team coach, the coach of the day, who is in a car that is driving behind the race in a caravan with all the other cars for the other teams. And in the car, they can talk to the team members of their race. And there's also a radio that is connected to the I don't know if it's commissary or somebody, and I don't remember what they're called, but somebody who is giving information about the race to the team director. So if you're sitting in the car, you'll hear, they'll usually identify people by their number. They don't usually say a name. So they'll say number 157 is off the front, or if there's a breakaway with multiple people, they'll say there's a breakaway, and then they'll say the numbers, and the team director will have the starting on the dashboard with all the teams, all the numbers, and all the riders. And so they can tell the riders in the race on their team who's off the front. So they'll be like, Annemiek van Vleuten has gotten in this breakaway with whoever, and then they can decide if that's a dangerous move. So if it's Annemiek van Vleuten or Van Vleuten, it's probably a dangerous move. But if it's somebody else that people aren't, that like isn't so known or known to be so strong, they might just let it go because they don't feel like that's a threat. So there's a lot of communication that happens within the race to let folks know. I say that to say in the Olympics, they didn't have radios. So there was not that communication, and they could not tell, Good Will Hunting is like really, really trying to demolish everybody's spirit, but we'll come back to them. But they weren't able to tell. So they just had to pay attention. Like it was old school. They had to pay attention and just know that homegirl was off the front. And I think a lot of folks knew, but not everybody did. And they were not communicating very well. And so the woman who won the Olympics, nobody expected that. She don't even like road racing. She's like, maybe I will do time trials, but I have no intentions of being in the peloton. Which I love that for her. Like, know thyself. And she gets to be the Olympic champion until the next one. And that's pretty cool. It was a long way of answering that question, but yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that is dope. That out of sight, out of mind. Now, for folks who race often, there are team dynamics that could be at play. This race is peppered with a lot of individual folks, so there aren't any team dynamics really happening. But in most cases, teams will have a Discord channel, and they'll have what Aisha described as having a headset so they can quickly and easily talk to each other during the race. And so that way they don't have to type and things like that. So they're not using necessarily the Zwift Companion app feature to talk to each other, but they use Discord so that they can communicate on tactics and things. And certain tactics they'll use is maybe sending someone off the front and forcing someone else within the peloton or group to chase after that person so that they can burn matches or expend themselves on certain efforts so that their legs are weaker later in the race. In Good Will Hunting, if people did their homework, they would have recognized that this person is a rider, and that as soon as they go, you better respond, because once they go, they will probably be gone.
You probably are never going to see them again. And I think another thing that's interesting to me, at least, is that now they're trying to, now that Zwift racing is becoming like a thing, they had to figure out how to regulate it, because a lot of people were essentially cheating.
Let's talk about
doping. Ooh. Doping is a prevalent problem in a lot of sports, and cycling definitely has had some real bad times with people cheating, and specifically cheating via doping. But with Zwift racing, there's a lot of honor system that goes into it, because you're using technology, you're at home. And so they had to find a way to manage and regulate, what people were doing. To make sure that, and to make sure they weren't. So I don't know all of the ins and outs, but I know that there is zwiftpower.com, where you have to like register with zwiftpower.com. And so we talked a little bit about power to weight ratio, which is your watts per kilo. And we can talk a little bit more about what that means. But essentially, my watts per kilo versus my husband William's watts per kilo, the numbers are going to be dependent on essentially what it says, which is the amount of power we can put out based, multiplied by our weight or divided by our individual weights, right? So if we look, let's just go to the race, right? So we have Good Will Hunting here. I don't know how much they weigh. It might be on Zwift Power, but they're right now doing 2.9 watts per kilo, and that's 200. And it was 201 watts at the time.
65 kgs.
Right. So if we look at these folks who are a little bit closer, 3.9, it's like all over the place. But I'm going to give a better example. I went out riding with Marty today, and we were doing about the same effort, but because he weighs more, his power number was higher. So while our watts per kilo could have been about the same, the actual number of watts was higher because he is a larger person than I am. So he's going to be able to put out more, like a higher number, while putting forth the same amount of effort. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Am I saying that in a way that makes sense? I don't know.
Well, I know
go to the audience.
But
let me know if y'all need some clarity, because I'd be talking in circles.
But basically, people, what they found out, with the cheating on Zwift, people were cheating with their weight. They were putting
right. That's what we was talking about.
Yeah, they were putting in the incorrect weight, and so what Zwift Power ended up through, I guess, years of fine tuning, they definitely require folks to consistently put in their weight, and you actually have to have certain things to make sure you're not cheating. So if you sign up for a race, you actually have to have like a heart rate monitor strap. There are a couple of things that you have to have to make sure that it's not cheating. And I believe if you're participating in some of the more serious series, they actually require weighing, and you have to have to be on video call so they can see your weight to make sure that it's you weighing yourself and it looks accurate. And I believe, I don't know all its particulars, but now they have ways of seeing if you are sandbagging. So, for example, someone
what's sandbagging, Shaquaya?
Basically signing up for a race that you can win. And so basically, if you're somebody who has a really high power, but you haven't raced on Zwift really, but you're still really strong, then you wouldn't have a race profile that people could even check or baseline. So technically, you could sign up for a C or D level race, which is a lower category, A being the top, A, B, C, then D, and then the E is for everyone. So technically, if you really had strong power, you just sign up. You could just sign up for the D or C level race, and you could win, and maybe you could repeatedly win in those lower categories. Now, what Zwift Power is able to do, if you are someone who's consistently winning over and over and over in certain categories, they will push you up into a higher rank because of your results. So basically, they are able to see that you're not being challenged enough. So they'll put you where your average race power has been showing, so that you'll actually be challenged more. So if you're someone who's winning D races all the time, but your average power is for like a 20-minute is in the 400 range, that's you a strong mofo. So you probably should not be in the D race. You should probably be in the ace race category, because, for example, Good Will Hunting, their 20-minute average is 293 watts, and that's pretty good. So that means if somebody has a 400 watt 20-minute power, they're really damn strong. And look how Good Will Hunting is destroying the Peloton, and they're
wait. When did that happen? Vranic caught up.
What?
We weren't paying attention. Look at that. They're together.
Oh, okay. Perseverance.
Okay.
Vranic.
That means Vranic has put in a huge effort, because Good Will Hunting was well in front of this person. But now that's good for Good Will Hunting, because now they have somebody to work with, and they can work together and break the spirits of the folks behind them even more. So we still have this group of three from our original group. So we've got D McNamara, P Apathy, E Arians, and then behind them is another group of three who are working together. So we've got these clusters of folks, and then behind them is a group of two, and then another group of two, and then after that, it kind of is all over the place again. But wow, yeah, that's impressive. I really thought Goodwill Hunting was gone, like good and gone.
It looked like so D McNamara, who else is with them?
E Arians and wait a second, what's going on here?
D McNamara definitely has some power. Their average
Yeah.
20 power is 273 watts.
And P Apathy. There we go.
P Apathy.
The cool thing about Zwift also, which I've cut off of the screen, so I'm going to move this over so folks can see it, is that you can see where people are from with the little flag next to their name. So these folks are riding together from all over the world, and I am not a flag expert, so I'm not even going to try and tell you what all these flags are. I know I see some French flags in there. I think that's a German flag, some American flags, a UK flag. But yeah, folks from all over the world are racing together at the same time. And so the cool thing about Zwift also is that any time of day, any time of night, anywhere you are, there is something going on because there's a 24-hour clock of something happening. And on the events, there's every hour, usually almost every half hour as well, there's something starting. So at any point, if you decide you want to ride your bike, there's something that you can join to do, and you will definitely have somebody to ride with, which is pretty neat.
You look like Peter Apathy is from Ukraine. So that's the that blue and yellow flag.
Okay.
Yeah, and Damon was from the UK, like you said. They're working together really well. Both of them being sea level riders.
Oh, it looks like E. Arians is dipped from that group of three and now has about 2 seconds on them, but is pulling it back because if you look at the watts per kilo, it's going down. He's at 2.2 and D McNamara is at 3.7. So maybe they've decided that they're gonna chill and wait and keep that little group together. Yeah.
And I think Eddie Arians is being smart. This person is an A level rider. So they're probably measuring their effort. Their average 20-minute is 327 watts. So they definitely have some power. And D McNamara and Peter Apathy should definitely be on the watch. Don't let that go too far up the road.
Yeah, for sure. I'm trying to, yeah. What about, do you have any stats on this group of three behind? The second chase group here. It's M. Massafaro. Thanks for the Italy. I actually knew that flag, but
yeah.
My geography is not great.
Is actually pretty new to the scene. They're a D level rider. They've been in 25 races thus far. So they have do have some experience, but they're a little more on the newer end. But they're not letting that discourage them because they're up there with the that second group. And to see who else is riding with them. It's Team Zoot. Oliver Hens. Looks like they're riding with Team Zoot and John Van Soset or something to that effect. Looks like they don't have any power data here for Oliver Hens, but looks like John Van Soset it has a 20-minute, 252 watt average. So they definitely have some power. They're a B level rider with 66 races under their belt. So definitely there's some experience there. So in that group, they should keep an eye out for that person to be ready to make a move as it gets closer to the end of the race.
So are we thinking that these two folks are on the same team? Because it could be a Team Zoot Road and a Team Zoot Mountain, but they're both on Team Zoot.
That is a good point.
And maybe that's why they're sticking together. I believe Zoot is an apparel company. I think that I've seen them make like triathlete suits, but I don't know much more about them than that. But cool, yeah. Let's check on Goodwill Hunting and Imbranic. They're still together. And it looks like the lead is holding about pretty steady now. They're not gaining or losing time on this chase group behind them. And if you're wondering how much longer we've got in this race, so I did the conversion because I know mine's in miles, and we said it was a 50-kilometer race. We're looking at about 31-ish. It's like 31.069 or something like that. Kilometers is miles for 50 kilometers. So they are nearing the end. They are around 6 miles from the finish at this point, 6-7 miles from the finish. So yeah, we're almost at the end of our race, and I don't think they're going to get caught, because if you recall, we said about a minute per 10K. 6 miles is about 10K, so that's looking like a pretty comfortable lead.
Yeah, and it looks like they probably end up doing 2 laps of this course, because the course was a total of 25.1 kilometers, which is 15.6 miles. And for the folks who wanted to get some course profile information, and this course actually had 3 specific sprints. There was a country sprint, tire sprint, and the alley sprint on the course. Just as FYI. And it is one of the flatter courses and amongst one of the Zwift worlds, located in the Mercury Islands.
And it's beautiful. Like, it looks like they're just going through a city at night right now. And we've seen a bunch of different kinds of terrains on this course so far, different kinds of backgrounds and settings. This is actually my favorite kind of riding in real life. I really enjoy riding in cities at night, especially when the roads are clear like this. Like, I know this is a fictional space, but this is like my dream world for sure. I really enjoy riding in New York City at night. I like riding in Atlanta at night, and it can get a little sketchy because that's usually when you don't have as many cars, but sometimes you get the cars that are like, oh, the roads are clear, let's zoom through. And that can be really, really dangerous. But
Zwift worlds actually change from night and day, and there are weather patterns that occur.
It'll rain.
And it'll affect your speed in certain places as well. So if you're on the jungle course, there's part that it has like a road, an off-road section. And so your speed on those boards or levels or worlds will actually be different than if you were on the pavement in the worlds that have the pavement. So something to note for those who are measuring efforts and like doing races and certain things. Also, what bike you choose for the certain world. So if you're on a course that is the jungle course where it's going to be some off-road features, you actually want to think about what wheels you are running and what kind of bike you're running, because that will affect your performance on that course, because you do have options for different bikes. So Zwift has mountain bikes, and they have time trial bikes, and they also have road bikes of various brands and types. They also have, and if you're a person who has been on Zwift a lot, and I believe it's like the climb to the amount of Everest, you get the Tron bike or something. I forgot what the actual number is, but I have been on Zwift long enough to achieve the Tron bike, which is if someone who plays video games is basically certain thing. Oh, that's a Tron bike right there. That with the lit up wheels. That bike is all it's going to be faster, and you can't buy it. So you can only get that bike if you've worked for it, which is another cool feature about Zwift. So certain things that are unlocked, you can only get from time spent on the game, or sorry, the app, because it feels like a video game sometimes, where you're switching through worlds, and adjusting your avatar and all that jazzy stuff. So just some cool features that they have. Uh, so you definitely, when you put in that work, it's rewarded based on the equipment and gear you can acquire.
So it looks like Good Will Hunting has taken off again. They've got a 7-second gap on Imvranic, and that's always a risk that you take when you bridge a gap. So if you recall, Good Will Hunting was off the front by themselves first, and then Imvranic somehow bridged that gap, meaning that he was behind and like literally built a bridge, not literally, but like metaphorically built the bridge to fill the space between him and the person in front of him, and then caught up. But that meant that they burned matches, right? We say you burn a match. So they use a bunch of energy catching up. And that means that Good Will Hunting was able to pace themselves the whole time, and then also use Imvranic to save some energy to make this next effort. And so now they're building another gap. So now they've got about 8 seconds. It was 9 a second ago. So Imvranic's putting up a fight. And if you look at their power to weight ratio right now, they're going back and forth with who's doing more and who's doing less. So an effort is being made, and it's still, there's still about 4 miles to the finish, and I can't call it yet. I don't think that this is a given. Oh, so look at that. Good Will Hunting took the sprint, won a jersey. Look at that.
Nice.
So if you look next to their name here, I'm gonna give them a ride on. But if you look next to their name, you see the green jersey. So they won the sprint, and so now they've earned the sprint jersey, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, more points, more drops when you win sprint, the sprint point or the QOM KOM on the course.
It's also possible that Good Will Hunting just wanted to secure the sprint, and it will now chill back and let Imvranic catch, which is a choice to make. Maybe they feel confident in their ability to out sprint at the finish. But it looks like they took a little break, and now they're, look at that, putting in a big dig. And when you get above, I think it's 7 watts per kilo or 8 watts per kilo, it turns red, because that means like you're really giving it a hard go.
Yeah, that definitely looks like that 7-second gap is holding, actually. And at least for now, it looked like it grew to another second. So Google is still out in the lead regarding that. But they definitely made a smart move by using them up and kind of going for it after Imvranic put in that large effort.
Another thing that you can use, another sprint. Another thing that you can use to gauge the effort that's being made. So Good Will Hunting is not wearing a heart rate monitor, so we don't really know, like, physically. We know what power they're putting out, but we don't know like how their body is doing. And I don't think that this particular race is registered with power, so that's fine. But Imvranic is wearing a heart rate monitor, so we know that their heart rate is 169 beats per minute. It was a little higher before. So you can see P Apathy is doing a bit less of an effort. And the thing about heart rate is there's so many things that can affect your heart rate, right? Like nerves can affect your heart rate, illness can affect your heart rate, and also fitness can affect your heart rate. So somebody who is more fit can possibly have a lower heart rate doing harder things because they've trained their body to work harder or do more without having to work as hard. So they can put out more power, but they don't have to necessarily, huff and puff doing it.
Exactly. And it looks like between our cluster in the back, we have Apathy, McNamara, and I'm gonna butcher the name. What's this? Arianis or they it based on the power numbers, it looks like McNamara has the edge. Um, so definitely something to keep an eye out. And Massafero has quite an edge too. They have a higher 15-second power, which is something that's going to come more into play when they get to the sprint line.
And Goodwill Hunting is getting very close. Goodwill Hunting and Imvranic are about 3 miles from the finish, maybe a little over two, it looks like actually. No, I'm bad at math. A little around three. And we're trying. And I think it might hold because
Yeah, that gap opened up. It's like
that
12.
gap opened up quite a bit.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, Brannick is definitely secure for the second spot. It
Yeah,
looks
for
like he's
sure.
trying to bridge it
So
up a little.
now we have a battle for third between D. McNamara, P. Apathy, and E. Arians.
Oh yeah,
And
Eddie.
they all look like they're pretty comfortable. 151 is a pretty comfortable heart rate. Now, Imvranic is trying, okay? 173 isn't, I mean, that's around threshold for a lot of folks, right? So I don't
Definitely.
know their heart rate threshold, but that is not a chill heart rate. Like an effort is being made. They're at least tempoing it at this point, right? Trying to catch, putting in 3.8 watts per kilo, but Goodwill Hunting is trying to hold on, but they got that gap down. Look at that, 5 seconds.
Yeah, and Brannick is doing a solid effort. Back to our cluster of three, they're going to battle it out. It looks like Eddie, being the A rider of that group, has a good chance of being the one to steal that third. But we'll see. But based on their power numbers, that's the person that they should be keeping an eye out for. Because it looks like once they saw the gap go out that far, they're probably measuring their effort and saving it for the sprint.
All right. I mean, we're going to find out real soon, aren't we? Let's look behind them. We've got our two-team Zoot folks and then Massafero, and they're duking it out for a top 10 spot. If Team Zoot members are working together, then it's a good chance that maybe one of them will try and do a lead out for the other. But on Zwift, it's a little harder to get organized in that fashion because you're not, physically able to like move somebody out of the way. In road racing, you can use your body, you can block people, not physically like football, but there are things you can do to sort of make it challenging for the opposition. But on Zwift, you don't really have as much control over the physical presence of the rider. And so it's anybody's game. I think as the platform is progressing, people are learning how to use it better and learning how to do more things. But that is an element of racing, e-racing that is different. Now look at this. Whew. I'm like, why did they slow down? But that gap it jumps back up.
It looks like the three that you were just talking about, the teams, the Zoot folks and Massaro, on paper, it looks like, based on experience, John Van Soest could win that sprint.
Okay.
Based on their rider level being B, whereas Oliver Hins, the other Zoot, is a C level rider, and Massafaro is a D level rider. But that doesn't necessarily mean anything because that is power levels. But Massafaro, on paper for power purely, looks like they could be the one to win the sprint amongst that three.
All right. We will see what happens. Meanwhile, in the front here, That gap is coming down again. It was at 20, 21, 22 seconds before. I commend M. Brannick for putting up a fight.
Yeah, that 15 seconds is down to, it looks like it's kind of holding there a bit.
Mm-hmm. And we're getting very close to the finish. So remember I said it was about 31-ish miles that we're looking at. So this is, it's now or never. M. Brannick's got to fight for it. It's coming down slowly, putting in an effort, giving it a real go, but we'll see if Good Will Hunting can hold it.
Yeah, I think knowing that he doesn't have him on his wheels, definitely giving him the go ahead to just go all out and keep holding that gap for Good Will Hunting. But M. Brannick is going to have to insert a bit of pace into that to kind of bridge it before at least the final mile, so that they can kind of rest a little bit.
So in our race for third, it looks like E. Arians has gone away from that group. They've got about 11 seconds on D. McNamara and P. Apathy, who appear to still be kind of working together to try and catch back on. And there is still time for that to happen, but the battle for, I don't know, first, second, and third is still up for grabs. We don't know what the podium is going to look like completely. And I felt pretty confident before that Good Will Hunting was going to take it, but now I'm not so sure.
Yeah, it looks like E. Arians is definitely pulling the move, which we definitely expected, knowing that they were an A rider amongst a couple C and B level riders in that cluster. So they do have the experience of races under their belt to follow up with that. That person has been in 474 races to date for
wow.
So quite a bit of
Didn't they, what's the phrase you need? Is it 1,000 hours to like become an expert at something?
Oh, I think so. They definitely killing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. The gap is going back up in the beginning here. We've got 17 seconds between our Good Will Hunting and Brannick, between first and second place at this point. And with only about a mile and a half, even less to go, I think Good Will Hunting has it.
Yeah.
And they're putting in a pretty good dig here. I think this is a victory ride to glory at this point. It might be pretty solidified.
It looks like E. Arians has about a 30-ish second gap on Apathy and McNamara. So I think that one, they continue to hold. It looks like it's growing.
Yeah, we got 40 and 46. So it looks like P. Apathy has taken off on McNamara at this point. Yeah. All right. So I think we know our 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And now there's still a race on for 5 and 6 and 7. So maybe teams will work together. Maybe they're like, hey, we've worked together enough. we're gonna have to spread it out, every man for themselves. But we will, we'll see. But meanwhile, it looks like Good Will Hunting and M. Brannick are gonna cross the finish line pretty shortly here. So it looks like that's gonna be our race.
Yeah, coming down to the finish here.
Mm-hmm. And you have a few options with the finish. This is what we call a solo breakaway, where you have one person off the front. You can have a reduced sprint, which would be kind of like our 3 folks in the back there, usually with a group of maybe 5 to 10. That would be considered a reduced sprint. Or a bunch sprint is when you have a large group and they all duke it out in a sprint. Is exactly what it sounds like. But it looks like today's race is going to be one in a solo break. Good Will Hunting has been fighting since the beginning, essentially. And so it was a well-earned, hard-fought for win, I'll say.
Yeah. One thing that's fun about Zwift, you can ride around without a helmet and you don't have to worry about injury. Which
Actually, I do wear a helmet on Zwift.
Really?
Yeah, I think you can see my little avatar sitting at the beginning here. But I'm going to cut back so we don't miss the finish. But yeah, I have my little helmet on.
Okay, I'll be rocking it all out. I just let it go.
My friends make fun of me. They're like, "Why you wear a helmet in a video in a virtual world?" Like, you know. See, Good Will Hunting got a helmet on. They know what's good.
I wonder if it makes them faster. I don't wonder if there's any.
All right.
Different.
They are no longer in our race, so I'm going to say adieu to you and that'll be it for our race here. Congratulations to Good Will Hunting. They are now back into the regular race world, or Zwift world, which is what happens when you are done with a Zwift event. It'll throw you back into the rest of the world with everybody else. They've discovered the pace partner here, which is B Brevet. They're going at around 3 watts per kilo nonstop. But that'll do it for us today. Do you have any closing words, Shaquan?
No, I don't think so. Did we catch the finish for the other 3 folks behind, or did that?
I think once we've crossed the finish line for our number 1 person, they boot us out because we were looking at them. So, yep. All right. Well, thanks so much. I appreciate everybody who has watched today. You can visit equiprunfox.com and catch us for the rest of the summit.
Skirt.
Bye.
Bye.